Welcome to Exception Seekers, the show where we challenge conventional views on youth mental health and explore stories and experiences that offer alternative perspectives. Today, Jody North joins me to talk about her upbringing and experience with mental health and addictions, the way her early lived experience helped inform her understanding of the experiences of others, and how she has used all that knowledge and experience to create a very cool resource for young people in the Muskoka area called MiND-AID Muskoka. So stay tuned, and here's my conversation with Jody. Being a young person can be tough. Raising a young person can be tough. Whether it's school stress, family dynamics, or navigating challenging emotions, everyone needs the right support. That's where Sound Youth Counseling comes in. We specialize in helping children ages 4 and up through individual, parent, and family counseling tailored to meet each person's unique needs. From tackling tough issues at home or school, to providing customized workshops and professional development for teachers and community leaders, we're here to make a difference. At Sound Youth Counseling, we believe young people deserve a safe, welcoming, and accepting space to grow and thrive, and every family deserves the tools to support them. If you're looking for support, visit soundyouthcounseling.ca and see how we can help. Sound Youth Counseling, empowering individuals, supporting families, and building stronger communities. Jody, welcome. It's so nice to see you and get the chance to sit down with you today. So thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm honored. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for so many reasons because I'm looking forward to, knowing more about your story, but also the chance to get to highlight what it is that you're doing now because I think it's pretty cool. So, as the founder director of MiND-AID Muskoka, um, maybe start us off with like what MiND-AID is, and what it does, because I think it's pretty special. And anyone from particularly like smaller communities listening should be like paying attention because it's got some great potential.
Sure. Well, it's definitely it's not an entirely new idea, but it's a little bit of a new take. So it's system navigation, which is a word that's thrown around, I know, in our field quite a lot, and in health
Yep.
services, to be honest, which is kind of
Yep.
a buzzword. And system navigation is essentially when something is complex and you likely haven't done it before, and there's processes involved and checklists and, eligibility requirements, and there's options and you don't know what they are. It's system
Mhm.
navigation is just a service that walks alongside you to decode what's
Hmm.
going on. What is it
Okay.
that you have to choose from?
Yeah.
What fits you best? What are the requirements?
Hmm.
What's the pathway forward and what does that look like? So it's kind
Hmm.
of like having a travel agent for your journey to mental wellness. That's what we like
Oh,
when we're
I like
explaining it.
I like that idea of thinking it of it. Yes, a travel
Yeah,
agent who helps you figure out what it is you need, where you want to go, helps you get there.
right. So we
And
have
then,
we
yeah,
say, you're driving the car if you want
right.
to be, or we
Uh-huh.
can drive and you can passenger, but we're in the car together. We've got
Yes,
all the GPS and road maps to everything. We know
right.
where all the best stuff is. We know what costs money, what doesn't. We know where to get funding if it costs money. So we've got the wallet, we've got the maps, we've got the vehicle. So you
Yes,
just have to decide where you want to go, and then, we can even get out of the car and let you drive it yourself. But
yes.
it's very client led. And again, another buzzword. Everybody says client led, client led. But
Mm-hmm.
it truly is about what the person wants to do. What are their goals and needs? So it
Okay,
starts off really by listening. Listen to their story, how much they want to tell us,
okay.
what's their struggle look like? And what is it they're
Yes,
hoping to achieve? And then we come up with a menu of options of all the things that they could choose from that fit
yep.
their need. And then they choose which thing's a priority and what they want to try first. Maybe they want to try 5 things at once, or maybe just one at a time. It's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then we just assist as needed. So if there's, pre-meetings that they don't want to go to, we can attend those on their behalf. If they want company when they go to an appointment that's stressful, if they want us to call ahead, whatever they think
Right.
is going to be most helpful in being their sidekick on their
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Even just hearing you say, someone to like go with you to meetings or call ahead, like thinking of the anxiety that that creates for some people and the barrier that that creates for some people. And just like, you know, not only like I might not know where to go for the help I need, but even if I think I know where to go, the idea of like calling and scheduling and talking to someone and explaining it, or maybe being told I'm in the wrong place, or or having to tell my story over and over to find the right place, or is all so tricky from that idea of system user
Hmm.
that then yes. So
Yeah.
okay, so just so I like have a picture and people listening have the picture. So let's say I'm a young person or the parent of a young person who's struggling
Yep.
and maybe it's struggling with school attendance or anxiety let's say mental health maybe with like school attendance or I'm having trouble in school.
Sure.
But I don't really know specifically what to do about it.
Right.
I could reach out to MiND-AID.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then what would my experience be? Like what would happen?
Yeah. So what's the process? So it
Hmm.
starts off, we try to be as barrier free as possible. So we take feedback from people of what's annoying and then we try to remove things that are annoying. So
Okay. I like that idea.
yes.
Yes.
So when somebody is reaching out, they can do it via text. They can do it
Okay.
over the phone, the website. We have like a little submit form on the website. They can call whatever they want. And it can be referred from another agency or it can be themselves. If it's a parent, that's fine too. If it's
Mhm.
a parent of a teen, we always like to have the teen part of the conversation because we don't want to be discussing their situation without them. So that's sort of the beginning piece is reach out and say exactly what you just said. There's a
Yeah.
struggle, don't really know what to do about it. So
Yeah.
then it just becomes a phone call or email, whatever's preferred, with our intake person, her name is Andrea, and she
Okay.
is the warmest, most lovely human, and she's also a registered therapist. So she's not a therapist with MiND-AID, but that's
Hmm.
what she does
Yeah.
as her profession. So she's a very skilled listener. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
our approach is not clinical at all. We don't ask a bunch of skill testing clinical assessment questions. We just want a conversation and it's whatever you're comfortable sharing. So
Mm.
through a warm conversation over email or on the phone, we might learn that something really big happened in that young person's life recently. Maybe grandpa passed away and they had a really close relationship. And maybe that's when the change started. So
Hmm.
it's really through the listening that we start to pull the more holistic pieces of the puzzle together. Maybe the family just lost their housing and they've been couch surfing on at a cousin's house.
Yeah.
Maybe the young person went through a traumatic personal event like sexual
Hmm.
assault or something. And
Hmm.
so whatever they're comfortable sharing helps us to understand what may have sent this person off course. If they were doing well before, now they're not. We have a little bit more information as to what might have caused that. And so we want to address things more holistically. So
Okay.
instead of saying, your kid is struggling at school, you need to have an appointment with the principal to talk
Hmm.
about what's happening in the classroom. We look
Hmm.
much broader than that. And we do ask at school, have you asked for help at school? How did
Right.
that go? What has worked for you in the past or what's working for you now?
Hmm.
Principal's great. There's a counselor at school that touches base. That's working well too. Maybe the young person had a therapist at one point and that was great, but they ran out of money and couldn't
Right.
keep seeing the therapist. So it really is a little bit of investigation.
Yeah.
And we don't push, share what you want. And based on what's shared with us, we can then prepare a menu of options. And that's when the
Okay.
intake person that you've started talking with, Andrea, will pass you along to our navigator. And right now her name is Mariko. We're hoping to have more navigators, but right now it's Mariko.
Yeah.
And she's a whiz. She will come up with a menu of options that addresses all the little pieces of the puzzle. So there
Okay.
might be therapy as a suggestion. It might be a connection with somebody at school as a suggestion. It
Hmm.
might be a grief support group with other young people who lost a relative, or it
Hmm.
might be sexual assault services. It might be funding for therapy related to sexual assault. So
Hmm.
it's all very specific to the story we're told.
Hmm.
And then it's entirely up to the individual. What do you think works for you? And then they choose, and then we say, do you want us to stay alongside? Are you good to go with this information if we email you everything you need to know to get in contact? And
Right.
that's all very individual too. But we
Okay.
always check in, and I think that's a very special thing about our work is it's relational. Like we really do want to have a relationship to an extent. Like we
Yes.
want to make sure you're okay. So maybe
Yeah.
you tried the school counselor and you just didn't click. Come and let us know that. because we
Yeah.
might have another idea. Or
Right.
maybe you went to the group work and froze because group work's not for you. Okay, well, let's try something individual instead. And so we can just keep checking in and revisiting what's working and what's not and keep
Mhm.
adjusting the path. Like you're not married to whatever path you choose,
Mhm.
it's whatever's working.
Mhm.
And yeah, at whatever pace you want. Sometimes a young person will come to us and work with us for a year and a half on six
Yes.
different things, boom, 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 boom. And
Yes.
sometimes they'll come to us with one and we'll think, oh gosh, they have so much to work on, but they're not ready to. So they do one
Yeah.
thing with us and then they disappear for 6 months. And then they come back to us, okay, I'm ready. I'm all charged up. Let's try the next thing. And
Yes.
that's totally fine too.
That just multiple touch points on the journey, of the person's leading it. It's sort of like, here are all your options, and we can explore these together, and you decide the path it goes, and we'll check in with you as you go. I think that's so special because I think so often, like when you really need help, it's hard because you're not always in a great place by the time you really need it. And you want it, but you don't necessarily know where to go. And having if you try and it's not the right fit, or you try and you're told we're actually not the right service for you, you need to go call these people, and then you go call somebody else, like it can get really discouraging. And so like I love how you check in or give the option for
Hmm.
the person to have you check in, just be like, is this right? Is this feeling like a good spot for you? Because
Hmm.
I think that's where sometimes people kind of get lost in the system, of
Totally.
they try and then they get discouraged and then
Well, especially
they
when
say
you're
no.
already struggling, like
Yeah.
when life is already hard, and then
Yeah.
you're asked to do this gauntlet or obstacle course to get what you need.
Yeah.
It's like some people can barely get out of bed and make a meal for themselves or shower that day.
Mm-hmm.
So asking
Mm-hmm.
them to do something that is quite complex is
Mm-hmm.
very unreasonable without
Hmm.
assistance.
Yes.
And
Yes.
also therapy is so personal. And that's one conversation we have with people is the
Mm-hmm.
chance of you getting the exact right fit of a therapist or counselor on your first try
Mm-hmm.
is unusual. Like
Yeah.
you're an individual. You have a certain way of expressing yourself and thinking and a certain way of needing information for progression. Some people
Mm-hmm.
really love to dig into the feelings. Other people want to know the science of why they're
Mm-hmm.
suffering. So
Mm-hmm.
you won't necessarily know if you've got the right person. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes services miss that. The bigger services think, well, you got into a counselor, you're fixed,
Yeah.
you got what you need. But it's like,
Yeah.
what if that counselor doesn't speak the language that you understand as a human
Yes.
being? So preparing
Yeah.
people for that, saying, hey, you can actually have a 15-minute conversation with this therapist before you even go to a session.
Yep.
Would that be of interest to you? And
Yes.
let us know. And we've had the young people come back to us and go, ugh, I can't talk to that person. They're so
Really.
squishy and lovey with their words, and it makes me uncomfortable. And we're like, okay, cool. Let's get you somebody that's a little more no nonsense in their approach.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yes.
finding that fit. And I think
Yeah.
we don't talk about that in the bigger system, that there for something as personal as sharing your inner
Mm-hmm.
darkness or your inner struggles,
Mm-hmm.
it really does have to feel comfortable, or they just
Mm-hmm.
anyone just
Yep.
won't share, won't
Yep.
go, won't do the work. And I have
No,
personal
yeah.
experience. I've went to therapists before where I know in the very first session, nope, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to work for me.
Mhm. I have as well. Yes. Yes. And I love how you put it out there because it just depersonalizes it. It's like it's not a you problem. It's a like it's a fit, and you won't always fit with everybody. And
Nope.
yeah, and I like what I think is different about or special about MiND-AID too is it presents options like that to say, like, if counseling, and I know counseling isn't always what everybody does through MiND-AID because you have like, it could be other services too. But, if it is counseling, it's options of counselors. It's here are different people, some publicly funded, some privately funded, like what is the best fit within all of them.
Hmm.
And I really like that because I think, having experience with like some bigger organizations, sometimes it's like there's this idea of like, well, you're just lucky to get a counselor
Right.
at this like, that's free and this is who they are. So like
That's it.
that's it.
You're
And
locked in. Yeah.
yeah, and I think just, you're back to your comment of like what is client led, like, you know, that isn't. I don't think. And
Nope.
but there's this perception of like it is because it's giving a service that's needed when,
Yeah.
it's very
You got
agency
in the
driven.
room, you have your professional, now open up, go.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And then
very
there's this,
mechanical.
yes. And then there's the sense that for the person of like, well, if I don't, then I don't have anybody
Right.
because like there are no other options. So I either make it work or I don't. So even if I'm uncomfortable, then there's this expectation that I keep going with it, which
Right.
is just, yeah, it's just an unfortunate reality sometimes for people that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we've
Yeah.
been doing this now just since 2020, but we've been doing it long enough to follow the path of enough youth that we have seen over and over again. A youth
Yeah.
goes to see a counselor. They're
That's
with
so
that
true.
counselor for a period of time. They're not progressing. The
Right.
issues they're having don't seem to be improving. They come
Yeah.
back to us. We say, would you like to try a different therapist? Yes.
Right.
Move them to a different therapist because they've given the other one a good shot. And
Mhm.
boom, almost instantly, you start to see things shift. The young person reports back, oh my gosh, I hardly had to explain myself. They understood how I thought right away. I felt
Mhm.
comfortable right away. And it's
Yeah.
really night and day. And it's not related to the skills or ability of the therapist at all. Sometimes it's honestly personality.
Yeah.
And therapists might be pretty good at being chameleons personality wise in their training and mirroring folks and listening, but when it comes down to it, we're all just people, and
Yes.
people click and some
Yeah.
people don't click. And
Yeah.
yeah, that needs to be taken into consideration. Now, can't always be a perfect solution, and
Mhm.
that sounds like I'm presenting like this perfect vision of how it all works out, but some specializations there aren't a lot of options, and so people do have to tough it out, or there
Mhm.
aren't enough sessions. And so their sessions, instead of giving them the 10 sessions they needed to process the struggle, five
Mhm.
of those sessions become preparing them. They only have 5 sessions. So
Yeah.
it becomes preparing them for not having sessions, which is
Yes.
not
Yeah.
ideal either, because the time would be better spent on actually addressing the issue rather than preparing them for life without addressing the issue, which
Yeah.
is very unfortunate. So it certainly isn't a perfect solution because we are
Mhm.
stuck working within a system that is grossly inadequate for the demand and for the
Mhm.
needs of local young people. And
Mhm.
so we can't promise it's always going to work out, but we do know we will exhaust the options together. We will try our best to get to what we can. And one criticism I've had a couple times from folks in the bigger system, the free
Mhm.
publicly funded system, is, well, you at MiND-AID, you're giving people money to go to private therapists,
Mhm.
and they should be using publicly funded resources. I agree. And so we do exhaust publicly funded resources
Yeah.
first. We always
Yeah.
ask, have folks tried the free
Yeah.
things that exist, and how did that work out for them? And
Yes.
so, of course, yes, they're there, they're free. Why not use them? But
Right.
sometimes a family has the ability or the means to go to a private therapist
Yeah.
and prefers to because they've done their own research. They can gain more information about a private therapist's
Mm.
skills, personality, and approach than they can the therapists embedded within a larger, big system of
Right. Just because
therapists.
it's out there on websites and things? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
can go to a website and you can learn, you can see videos of them presenting themselves, you can read a bit of
Right.
their philosophy. So
Right.
that can be very comforting to somebody who's like, "Oh my goodness, this person speaks my language."
Yes.
Whereas if you go to a publicly funded resource,
Yeah.
oftentimes you only get a website about the organization. You don't
Right. I
get
see
the
what you mean. Yeah.
profiles or the individual personalities or videos of the therapist. And as much as I get that a bigger system maybe can't offer such personalization, it would be of such benefit if
Mm.
young people could actually see ahead of walking in those big doors
Yeah.
who the person is that they're going to be exposing their thoughts to. And so
Absolutely.
that's been a bit of a struggle, is trying to convince someone to go with something that's a bit unknown before
Mm-hmm.
going with something that they can learn a little bit more about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been one criticism that we've had, is that we're pulling people out of the public system, or that we're creating a two-tiered system. And I find that
Mm.
interesting because I feel like we've turned the two-tier system on its head, because the reality is
Yeah.
folks with financial means do go to private therapists because they
Right.
can. And
Yes.
the wait lists are shorter, they're more transparent, they can have a meeting ahead of it to meet their
Mm-hmm.
person, to pick
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
So they are already using those services. The poorer folks out there
Mm-hmm.
that can't afford those sessions, those folks aren't getting the care they need. And so our funding is actually equalizing that system. So the folks with means already have the opportunity to go to private therapy. We're not influencing that. That's
Right.
already happening.
Right.
But folks with less financial means don't have that option. So
Right.
when they come to us
Yes.
and whatever specialization isn't available to them in the publicly funded system, we can now bring them to a more equitable
Yes. Help them
position.
access it.
Sure.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that that's wonderful. We should be providing an equitable opportunity to all folks to access the
Hmm.
same things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. And especially up in this region, I think, where, there are fewer services or fewer specializations, or they're farther apart, and, transportation. Like, there's just, I think, so many more layers sometimes of barriers that people have to work through
Oh,
to
definitely.
get there.
Definitely.
Yeah. W- Um, so why did you start? How did this start? Like,
So,
there's so many pieces in this, but like, what was it you were seeing
yeah.
that made you say this is what we should do?
Well, I have to go back a little bit because I'm new to this field. I'm a newbie. I actually, for over 20 years,
Mhm.
wrestled wildlife and taught
Okay.
people about conservation. Like I was avoiding humans,
You're right.
which I'm sure we can dive into why that began in the first place. But
That can be another one.
there's a whole reason why I ended up more interested in being around animals than people. But
Yeah.
then I became very interested in teaching youth about nature and conservation. So I've always spent a great deal of time with young people. It's always
Yeah.
been my interest as being around young people. And
Okay.
so my wildlife center was forced to close because of a highway expansion. And so something that I had done my entire life and had no other experience of any kind, I'd done it since I was a teenager.
Wow.
I was like, oh crap, like I've just lost my home, my
Yes.
identity, my career, my purpose. And
Right.
so I thought, well, I don't think I can dive back into that world right now.
Okay.
I was too hurt. My heart was broken. And so I thought,
Yes.
what other way can I help in this world that is not related to that? And so I
Hmm.
thought, well, I want to help youth. So I went back to school. I went back to university for psychology and
Hmm.
started working on a degree. And then I thought, oh crap, I probably need a bit of experience with humans. And so I started looking for volunteer experiences in Muskoka,
Yeah.
and I came across victim services. And I thought,
Okay.
hey, this will give me a real quick idea of whether I
Yeah.
should be helping people or not. And so I joined their volunteer crisis response team, took
Okay.
to it immediately as a crisis responder. It was
Mm-hmm.
such meaningful work, really life changing. And so
Mm-hmm.
then became a team leader. And then after I was a team leader, there was a job position that came up at Victim Services. And my
Okay.
boss there, Eva, said, you should apply. And I was shocked because I'm like, I'm a newbie. Like, I'm not in this field yet. She's like, oh, I think you're made to do this kind of work. And it is very
Yes.
much system navigation for victims of
Yes.
tragedy and crime. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I applied and became the program coordinator at Victim Services, overseeing the volunteer team.
Yeah.
And yeah, was teaching courses on how to help people in crappy situations. And then that's when I started working, doing client work. And that
Okay.
meant young people coming into victim services were sent to me because
Yeah.
I did love working with youth. And over and over again, I saw young people who needed more than the short-term support service that victim services could provide. They're mandated
Hmm.
to provide short-term support. So
Yep.
a young person would come in with a horribly tragic story, a whole laundry
Mhm.
list of contacts they needed to make and applications they had to fill out for funding and all these things they needed to do.
Yes.
And then their support would have to end. And so my boss said, you can't keep holding on to these young people forever and walking them through everything they need to get done. You've got to come up with a better solution or we're going to get in
Mm.
trouble. And so I
Right.
said, fine, I'll come up
Mm.
with a better solution. And
Yes.
not only will it serve these young people who are victims, but it'll just serve any young person who has a bunch of things they're trying to figure out. And so
Mm.
that's honestly where the concept was born. And so I started to research, does this exist? And I learned about system navigation in bigger
Yeah.
cities through like the Family Navigation Project in Toronto, and CHIO's got their Plio
Okay.
one. So there are system navigation, services that exist out there, but not a lot in rural and remote areas, which I would think
Yes.
there's more barriers, there's more
I
challenges,
know.
there's
You think
less
that's where they should
walk-ins.
be.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
like everything, we're under resourced. So we're
Mhm.
always last in the more rural, more remote areas to get things we need. And so
Hmm.
it was kind of neat to design it for that environment, which was different than the communities I had seen
Yeah.
that had that type of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it just started talking to all the other agencies about, getting their input, stakeholder input, and talking to the
Hmm.
youth that I worked with. And
Hmm.
honestly, it's still learning what it is. Even after 5 years, we keep changing our processes, which we're in such a good position to do that. We're not embedded in a large organization where we're weighed down by red tape and a whole bunch of
Yes.
already established processes that may or may not be efficient or needed.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we get to keep just that didn't work. This youth fell through that crack. What do we got to create to catch that? What do we have to create to
Hmm.
catch that? So it started off as mental health system
Yes.
navigation. And now it's all about wellness because in reality, if you are homeless, you're going to need housing along with mental health support. If
Yes.
you're hungry, you're going to need food along with. So it really
Yep.
became cross-sectoral. So as much as it's mental health and wellness system navigation, it really is just getting you what you need from all sectors to be
Yeah.
your best self. And so,
Right.
yeah,
Huh.
that's a long story, but that's how it all got started.
Yes. Well, and yeah, and now, I mean, knowing you, there's when your boss is like, you have to either like figure something out or we're gonna get in trouble. You're like, I'll just figure it out. It's like that doesn't, of course, that's exactly what you would say to then, come up with something that worked. You're like you're a relentless advocate of figuring things out. Um, I Okay, well, I want to ask more about the animal piece because that's really interesting. Um, and I also, though, know, when you think of like rural and all the barriers and things, I do want to make sure we mention the mobile hub
Mhm.
because I also think that is, again, just like another level of reducing barriers.
Yeah,
So maybe when we think of that, maybe you could give us like a quick piece
sure.
of where the mobile hub came from
Yeah.
or what it's doing. And then, yeah, and then I want to ask more about the animals.
Yeah. All right. Well, the hub was just an extension of what we're already doing. So we didn't realize it, but over time we went from system navigation to starting to orchestrate integrated youth services. So, I mean, when you follow the need, you end up entering into all different new realms. So once we went, wait a second, we aren't just about mental health. Now we're helping youth get everything they need. We've become this one door to everything. Well, we're kind of like these hubs that pop up all around the province. So we started to look into provincial hubs and other hubs across Canada and realized it'd be really cool to have a drop-in place where youth could just walk in and hang out and feel
Yeah,
comfortable and be able to
yeah.
share and then get the help they needed. But we were faced with the problem of Muskoka being so dang widespread. Where are you going to stick a building that all youth can access? We've got no public transit. They're just
Yeah.
not going to use it. One town might, nobody else will. And
Hmm.
so I looked into mobile hubs because I thought if it was on wheels, it could be in every community. And so I found out there are mobile hubs of all different kinds out there in the world. So I called a bunch of them, learned some do's and don'ts, and then said, let's go buy a giant RV and convert it into a space where youth can hang out and do activities. And it's got a clinical space for a nurse practitioner that we have on our team now. And so
Yeah.
really it is an integrated youth services hub on
Hmm.
wheels. And
Hmm.
so it has traveled to over 100 stops in its first year
Wow.
last year,
Wow, that's amazing.
which is really exciting.
That's
And
so
that's
cool.
only from when the snow and ice is gone. So it's spring
Right.
to fall, it's on the road. And then our hub team continues to visit those locations just on their own with resources when the hub
Yeah.
isn't on the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had like over 1,000 youth check in, sign in to participate in activities with us. And loads of them got the care that they needed now through
Yeah.
the hub. And it's also just a
Yeah.
billboard that travels around and makes people aware that there's somewhere they can reach out to for help. And so it's at those high
Hmm.
schools, it's at events, community events, and we do
Yeah.
fun activities. It's not
Yeah.
clinical all the time. It's mostly fun with snacks and
Yeah.
yeah, and they can access. So that's where that came from. It's just an extension of what we were already doing, but reaching more youth.
I think that's so fabulous.
It's
Yes.
pretty cool. Also,
Yeah.
I love the big Muppet adventure whole thing. I'm a kid. I'm aging myself here. The
It's okay.
Muppets Great
You
Adventure.
can age us together.
I just had visions of cruising around in a big, colorful, crazy vehicle and hanging out with fun people. And that's really what it's turned into. So it's pretty
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah. And I've been around and seen it at some of the schools. And yeah, it's pretty cool to see people like they want it. I think that's one of like, the greatest things is because it's been so youth led in its
Mhm.
ideas and services that they are using it because I think sometimes adults come up with these ideas
Yep.
of, this would be great and then, try to fund it and implement it and having never had the right voices at the table.
Yep.
And then, and one of the things that I think is really cool about the hub is how you have had youth voices at the table all the way
Right.
along to help design it and figure out what would be most meaningful
For
for
sure. We have
change.
youth on our board and we have a youth advisory committee. And we asked
Hmm.
them, is this lame? Because we had a vision, us old people had a vision of what we thought the inside of the hub should look like, all
Mm,
crazy
mhm.
colors and graffiti. And then we invited the youth committee in and they were like, no, we'd like dark wood and this beautiful blue, deep blue. And we want these soft pillows. And we're like, oh my God, these guys are like designers. So we felt pretty foolish in thinking we knew what they
Right.
wanted, but they corrected us.
Yes. Well, they
Yep.
will, there's a
Yep.
humbleness that comes from working with young people.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Well, and even the wrap on the hub, like the outside graphics of
Mhm.
the hub, that was designed by a high school student in Huntsville. We just put out a
That's cool.
contest and a high school kid put it together and it's more beautiful than anything we could have created. It's awesome. It
That's
looks
really
so
neat.
good.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've become this person who creates things, creates programs, but you used to work with animals. What was it? What was
Mhm.
it that drew you to conservation?
Well, I was a kiddo from a not great situation, which I think has
Okay.
also given me some really great lived experience to sort of work from in my work with
Hmm.
humans. So once
Hmm.
I was done running away from humans, I could actually
Hmm.
apply some of the things I picked up. So
Okay.
I grew up in a household that had some really great things and some really bad things. So there was some domestic abuse.
Hmm.
There was unmanaged mental health and addictions in my home. There was sexual abuse in my home. There was
Hmm.
poverty. There was definitely some things that could have derailed me pretty well.
Right. Yeah.
But I did also have a wonderful set of grandparents who were just
Mm.
these guiding light, and my mom, who was also captive in this abusive situation, was a golden human being who loved nature. And so one of the
Oh,
positive things we did all the time when we were kids, my mom was a wildlife artist, was to
okay.
get out into nature. So my happy place always, where there was peace and where everything made sense, was in the
Yep.
bush. It always was. And the humans I couldn't trust that I should have been able to trust kind of turned me away from people. And
Yes.
so I developed some really great people skills defensively to keep myself in a safe space, but really
Yep.
was most happy around nature and animals because you
Mm.
didn't have to guess. An animal won't
Hmm.
stab you in the back. It won't tell you one thing and do something else. If they don't like
Yes.
you, they'll bite you or scratch you. If they do like you, then you've done something magnificent. And so
Yes.
it
Yes.
was just refreshing to be around them, be a grubby little kid ripping around in the bush. And so I'm still that person. I still spend most of my time in the bush and I am a hermit. I don't have friends. I don't do social things. I am very much still that little girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's what
Okay.
pushed me in that direction was,
Yes.
yeah, that
Did you grow up in the Muskoka area?
I did not. I'm a
Didn't.
Bowmanvillian or
Oh,
Bonerville, if you're local.
Bowmanville. Okay.
I grew up in Bowmanville
Okay.
and spent most of my summers at provincial parks across Ontario and got to know where all the most beautiful places were.
Yes.
And then I started working at a zoo as a teenager, a zoo that had big cats and monkeys and bears and snakes, and loved that work, became a zookeeper. Then I ran a children's camp at that zoo that I created, and I ran these night safaris, and I did educational outreach out of that zoo. So I was already teaching and working with youth right from when I was a
Mm-hmm.
teenager from the zoo. And then I
Yes.
didn't like zoos because they can be quite cruel and they monetize animals. And so I said, you know what? I can still teach people about wildlife, but they don't have to be forced to be in captivity. And so my wildlife center was like the wildlife center of rejects and nomads. So we had, I had bald eagles that were missing parts, and I had an
Oh,
epileptic skunk and a bobcat that survived
okay.
cancer. And so all of these creatures that couldn't live
Wow.
in the wild and
Right.
had to be in captivity and who were already,
Yes.
because of their circumstances, pretty chill around people, became an
Yeah. Okay.
opportunity for them to live out their lives protected in captivity while people could come in and learn about them. And so
Yes.
that's how my wildlife center got started, was that was
Okay.
the philosophy behind that. Yeah.
Yes,
And
like
then
a
I
safe,
could put it anywhere. And so
right.
pick anywhere in the province to put it. Well, obviously Muskoka. Hello. Muskoka's amazing. I used to travel to
Okay.
Muskoka with wildlife, teaching at the resorts all
Yes.
around and the summer camps all around Muskoka before I moved there. So in 1999, moved up and built a wildlife center on Highway 11.
Okay. That's how you ended up in Muskoka.
Yep.
Wow. And
Yep.
then it was Highway 11's expansion.
Yes, which is
Okay.
ironic because we were expropriated from our land for the highway expansion that never happened. So,
There you go.
yes,
Huh.
but
I
everything happens for a reason.
okay. Everything happens for a reason. Yes. Interesting. Like it's so special. Like that you had that nature safety, that like escape, that place to go to as a young child that you found
Well,
that
and
you found
honestly,
somewhere.
working with mammals who've been through traumatic things, like a lot
Hmm.
of the creatures I looked after, they weren't human,
Hmm.
but they were
Hmm.
mammals who um, couldn't express themselves in English. They
Hmm.
couldn't tell me words of what was going on. I learned more about human behavior from working with animals that had been through trauma than I could ever learn from humans.
Interesting.
It was
Well,
incredible. And I didn't
yeah.
realize that at the time when I
Yes.
was working with the creatures, but it became second nature. I'm very, very comfortable with distressed wildlife and
Mhm.
very comfortable and had to make those animals comfortable because if they really hated people and they were really distressed, they'd have to be euthanized. So there
Right.
was a great deal of incentive to figure
Yes.
out what was going on in their little minds to
Yes.
make the environment that they were in support what they needed, which is essentially what I do
Mhm.
now, but for creatures that can speak to me. So
Yes.
it's
Yes. And
it's
almost this like reflection of, kind of what you needed as a child too, of someone to just make your environment safer.
totally is. It
Yes.
totally is. And I very much see the youth that I work with through the lens that I have, which was what would I have needed?
Mhm.
Obviously times change and our
Sure.
processes need to change and get with the times and language. But yeah, what did I need? What were my essential needs that were not met? What were the
Mhm.
effects of things that were happening to me? What would have been most helpful? And in my first few clients, I was the only person working at MiND-AID for the first little while. So I
Right.
was the navigator. I had to figure out how to get young people who are very untrusting
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
open up so that I could help them. And my
Yes.
past experience with creatures and my own childhood was essential in that because I could take those lessons and apply them and make people feel at ease and know they're
Yes.
not alone and that their journey might be unique, but there's some
Hmm.
similarities. And yeah, it's lived experience is really so
Hmm.
much um,
It's
of
so
what,
much.
yeah, part of
Yeah.
helping is the empathy piece. It's one thing to
Hmm.
scholastically understand what a struggle looks like, but if you've
Hmm.
lived a struggle, it's very easy to connect with
Hmm.
folks that have also struggled. And I mean, my
Yep.
I have two siblings. One is having a wonderful life, and one is having a horrible existence because
Mm.
he didn't find the things he needed when we came out of that horrible gauntlet. And he's homeless
Yeah.
and mentally ill and is addicted. And
Yeah.
I don't know that at this stage in life, in his middle
Mm.
age, that he can turn that around. And had he had the things that are being provided to the youth that we're helping,
Yes.
he wouldn't be where he is right now. He would have had a chance at a really good life. And that's a
Mm.
big influence too.
Yeah, I'll say. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must be it must be yeah, I imagine it'd be hard to like see firsthand just the different paths, that can be taken, but then also this like central point of, trajectory that you have the opportunity to like change for others too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we're young, that's really when it counts for some of these things. I mean, we can't control the
Hmm.
hand we're dealt, the family we're born into,
Hmm.
or the things that happen around us. But if the right
Yeah.
supports are in place
Yeah.
and they're flexible, then we can still choose our future. We
Yeah.
don't have to be a victim
Hmm.
of our past circumstances forever.
Hmm.
We can
Hmm.
still live a good life and be okay and choose a new path. But
Hmm.
you have to see that it's an option and you have to have the
Yes.
supports there to help you jump off the wrong path and get onto the right path. And
Yes. And sometimes, and those adults sometimes outside of, parents or caregivers, or, whether that's through like a system navigation, more formal, other adults to like build that around you, or, you mentioned like your grandparents,
Hmm.
who are like other adults in the family who
Yeah.
are there, who can offer that.
Well, and there were some accidental lights that were presented to me. My parents, I think, wanted to get rid of us because they were working hard and we were in the way, and they sent us to a church subsidized summer camp. And it
Okay.
was the only way we could afford to go to a summer camp. And I went several years in a row. And honestly, the
Mm.
kindness at that camp was on full display. And I
Yeah.
saw a different type of people
Yes.
I had
Right.
experienced before, and a different way of being caring and
Mm.
kind and affectionate that was safe. And
Yes.
that was a big, big piece of it too, was, you don't know where the little lights are, but I did
Yeah.
notice them. Like when my grandparents were huge, camp made a big difference. I had some really great teachers that saw potential in me, and I can
Hmm.
honestly say they had influence in my trajectory. So
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be system navigation or a formal service, but
Yeah.
guiding young people onto a right path, there has to be those little lights along the way of some kind.
Hmm.
So I guess I just wanted to be a little light or create light to pull similar youth off of dark paths and onto a
Yeah.
different future.
Yes. Show them that there are different paths,
Yeah,
that there are
totally.
options.
Right.
Yes. That's such a
Yep.
beautiful analogy of how to do it. Yeah. When when do you think, because one of the things I'm always just so interested in is that idea of exception seeking, sort of we get we can get really rigid in our thinking sometimes, or think this is the only way things can be done, or the only way things can
Right.
operate. And, as someone who has seen our way things were done, and then said, there's got to be something else.
Hmm.
You saw an exception, right? Like you found a different path. Um,
Hmm.
when do you think, when do you think you started noticing that you saw things differently than other people? That you were like, I will just create
Yeah.
and do this. Like when, because it sounds like it started early, but like did you
Yeah.
realize you were seeing things differently?
I don't think I did at the time. It's only like looking back and like you, I'm interested in human thought and behavior and how people end up where they end up. So
Yeah.
when I got this award recently for innovation, I
Yeah.
giggle because it sounded so big and official and lovely. But innovation is just outside the box thinking. And
Hmm.
then I thought, well, why am I good at that? Like I never studied anything like that. And it's a survival
Hmm.
tactic. I mean, when you're a kid that grows up in a very unsafe environment,
Okay.
and you're forced to grow up far too young,
Hmm.
you find ways to solve things in unconventional ways because you hit blockades and barriers. You have to fake it till you make it sometimes because you don't have what you need to get to the next thing. And so
Yeah.
I really do think that's one of the gifts of having a crappy time young is that you are gifted some skills that if you get the right opportunity, you can use them. So I think I became a creative problem solver because I didn't have a choice. Like that was how I got by. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because I mean, I feel like I'm in a successful place now. I'm an executive director and I'm respected, but I'm a high school dropout. I had to become a co-op student to get my last high school credit after I was already a professional because when I was towards the end of high school and I wanted to go to university, I was told that wasn't an option for me. And I had the grades to do it, but I
Mm-hmm.
knew that it wasn't going to be for me. I wasn't one of
Right.
those kids that could do that. And so I went and I proved myself at work and climbed professionally at work by learning more than anyone else on the job, not through
Yeah.
formal education, but my own dang stubbornness and motivation to not fail and
Hmm.
to make it somewhere with my life and to change my stars.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a high school dropout that ended up in a leadership role at a zoo very quickly and then started a business. And people never asked, "What's your degree?" Well,
Mm.
I'm a dropout, but I know lots of information because I'm self-taught because I had to be.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty neat because
It is pretty
when
neat.
Yeah, young people don't
Yeah.
want to take a conventional path. They don't necessarily have to. There is other ways to get to where you need to go. And even this example of this new career of helping people. I'm not a clinician. I would never give clinical care to somebody. I'm not qualified to do that. But I am a great problem solver and I'm really good at hiring people who know how to do the things that are needed. And
Yes.
so even
Yeah.
this role, I never finished the university. I was in university for psychology. Knew I'd have to get a degree to enter a new field and be taken seriously. Started volunteering, and once again, proved that I could do something in a different way and I could learn something in a way outside of that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, got an opportunity before conventionally that than I would have because I worked so hard. And it's
Yes.
interesting because, yeah, I mean, a lot of young people are given the message that if you don't take this prescribed pathway to success, you won't get there. And that's absolutely not
Mm-hmm.
true. There's
Mm-hmm.
many ways to get to a goal. And it depends what
Yes.
success means to you. I'll never make lots of money. I don't care. So I'm not interested in that. But
Yeah.
I can make a difference using the skills I do have and find
Yeah.
people to work with me that have skills I don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And I mean, yes, the creativity, the problem solving, the out of the box thinking, the self-reliance, um, this trust in yourself and the tenacity and the like I think there's pieces too where there would have been multiple little moments where things branched, where you could have paused and been like, I think I have to go back and do this, or I don't think I'm qualified to do that, or I
Right.
think, right? But you just kept saying, here's the opportunity. It's like, of course I can take that. Yes, I'll try. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And you kept taking those risks and look where you are.
It's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
it's
Like I
pretty
do
cool.
remember in high school because I was supposed to go back for a fifth year.
Hmm.
And I decided because I was told that university wasn't going to be allowed and I wasn't allowed to stay at home once I reached 18. So I was like, oh, well, that kind of changes my university plan. And
Right,
so I was offered a job at the zoo and I was like, well, what if I don't get offered a job at the zoo once I get a degree? This
right,
is right in front of me right now, and it's
right.
what I want to do. Maybe not at the level I want to do it, but it is in the world that I want to be in.
Yes.
University's not going anywhere, and I don't have any money to pay for it right now, and I don't have somewhere to live. So I'm going
Hmm.
to have to do something to make money in order to live somewhere. So
Right.
I'm going to go that way,
Yeah.
knowing that I can always get off that path and I can go back to school when
Hmm.
I'm in a better position to do so. So it's kind of recognizing that there's something right in front of you and maybe it's weird and maybe it's risky and maybe it's not the right way to do it, but give it a try.
Yeah.
Most things are not set in concrete. So you can go, oh, that was stupid. I'll go back and
Hmm.
try something different. But it
Hmm.
seems every time I take one of those little risks,
Hmm.
it's worked out great. And I'd like to think that has a great deal to do with my true intentions. Like I really do want to make a difference and I really do want to be helpful and I want my time on this earth to have been well spent so that
Yes.
when I go to bed every night I can go, yeah, that kid's having a better day.
Yes.
And I think that is rewarded somehow,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know?
Yes. Well, I'm so grateful that there are people like you doing what you do. Because I even like whether through sharing your story, whether through like presenting these little lights to people, of different paths, whether like walking alongside somebody as they try to like figure out this journey or alongside a parent as they try to figure out this journey for their child, or I think I think those roles are so important and I think sometimes too undervalued. It kind of goes back a bit to what you're saying, even of like life experience of what's the value of life experience and sometimes if we look too quickly to a degree or the piece of paper um yeah, I think we gotta give more credit to what we bring to the table outside of that
Yeah. Well,
than
and
we
there's
do
so many
often,
ways
so
to learn. I
yeah.
mean, you can learn independently. There's the
Hmm.
interweb. Like this
There's
didn't
this
exist.
thing.
You know, Before learning consisted of, Encyclopedia Britannica in the local
Oh my
library.
gosh. Right?
You
You
know,
remember you'd go through the
totally.
decimal system trying to find things in the
Yeah,
library?
you want to learn something, you actually got to dig in and go through a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff you don't need to know to get to the stuff you do. But with the
And
internet,
and
if
if
you,
the book wasn't there, you didn't learn it.
no,
You
nope,
just didn't know.
nope. Nope, you don't have access. And so you had to go to university because you needed someone to show you the specific stuff you needed to learn. And I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're going to be a brain surgeon or a registered therapist, go to school to get the stuff you need to know. But if
Yes.
you're doing something like system navigation, where you're just being a skilled, compassionate person who assists people, well, know the systems you're helping them with, know them really well.
Yeah.
And, do your learning around safety. Make sure you know suicide intervention and crisis intervention. But these are all courses you can take outside of university. You can learn. I've taken so many incredible courses that are very skill based to
Yes.
be able to help people safely. So
Mhm.
I don't feel it's irresponsible. I'm not going to do clinical work because I'm not a clinician, but I'm a skilled helper. And
Yeah.
and that is a valuable role. And it's something
Yeah.
that a lot of people can do that maybe aren't wanting to go to university. You can still
Yeah.
become a skilled helper. I know I'm working with a youth, right, or I have a friend that's youth right now, used to be a client of MiND-AID, now on the board,
Yeah.
that is now looking at a helping career because
Oh,
of all the changes that have happened in their life. They're now
yeah.
ready and stable and wanting to give back. And
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful to see that someone who was so hopeless when I first met them is now like, not
Mhm.
only am I hope filled, I'm ready to
Mhm.
spread some of this hope.
Yeah. Oh,
That's,
I love that.
it's really
I love
nice.
that. So if people are wanting to learn more, mindaidmuskoka.com.
Yep.
Yep. And they can look, I mean, and you're a registered charity. So if people are
Yes.
moved, they can always donate,
Yes.
contribute. But
Please do.
if they want to hear more about what you're doing or they're in this area and they want support, they can find you that way.
Yep, right through
Yeah.
the website. Yep, and
Okay.
if you shoot an email to the main email in there, it gets to me. We're not a huge staff, and it's very personal. There's no, big executive office somewhere. It's just us, and our
Right.
office is in the RV when it's back up in Muskoka. So yes.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, reach out anytime, anybody. But yes, we would appreciate donations because we have no core funding. So we may or may not exist next year or the next if we
Yeah.
if we don't get the grants and the donations that we receive from the community. So,
And Dream, like you get a big donation. What do you do with it?
oh my goodness.
Where
Right
do you,
now,
what does
our
he
poor
think go?
navigator Mariko is so overwhelmed with folks that need her assistance. We need another navigator desperately, another full-time navigator. So our goal right now is
Okay.
raising dollars for that.
Yep.
And we have plans to expand our services into Perry Sound,
Woo!
which means we have
Which
to
I'm
have more.
excited about.
Yes, my
Yeah.
staff is like, don't do it because we can't
Yeah.
support that yet because they're
Yeah.
already pretty burnt out. So yeah, raising dollars not only to keep our organization going as it is, but then additional dollars so we can expand to meet the need and get further up into Perry Sound and help
Love
young
it.
people up there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for your time, Jody.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a nice
Yeah.
talk.
It was. Thanks for listening to Exception Seekers. Tune in again as we continue to seek overlooked stories that offer new perspectives, disrupt limiting beliefs, and inspire transformative approaches to nurturing youth mental health.
This podcast was produced by North Star Networks, the guiding light for progressive media.